Alright, so welcome back to Wingspan, everybody. So in this video we're going to be discussing all of these birds that have bird powers. Now, Wingspan has tons of different species of birds. And even though there are lots of different abilities in this game, with variations even within variations, there are so many that are still very similar to the same ones. Now, so we won't go over every single. With that said, we will not go over every single bird in this video or in the next videos after this, because a lot of them have the same ability anyways. But we will discuss every difference in each ability. Now, before doing that, we would probably be best to at first go over that there are 3 different types of bird powers that are activated at 3 different times of the game. And so this one here is when it's played, you'll get to activate it. So all of these birds here, and that's all I have here on white. This is the only ones in this entire stack here that have this ability when played. Now, there isn't that much in this video because it goes like up to here and probably blocks out the view of the other 2. But these abilities that have this brown, when activated ability, there's tons of them. The majority of the bird powers is this pile here. And there's just a ton of them to go over. That will take the longest to go over because there's so many of them. And then this is all we have for once between turns. So you'll do this at a particular time. And this is like a pink ability, I guess you could say. And this is all there is. There's not that many of these pink ones. That's all there is. So not very many, and it's not likely you'll come across these too often when you play this game. I guess it just depends how well it was shuffled, or how bad it was shuffled. So let's go over the white abilities for this video to start with. Okay, so here we have the Brant. And this one is, when played, you'll draw the 3 face-up birds in the bird tray. So there's a bird tray in this game, and you'll usually have a bunch of birds in a deck of cards that you can draw from like normal with most games. But you'll also have this bird tray that will have usually 3 birds face up. At least at the beginning of each turn, there will always be 3 birds face up. Now, these birds are the birds that don't have any abilities. Now, as in, that's why they're sitting here in this bird tray, because there's no need to talk about these birds because they have no abilities. Of course, that doesn't mean that it will just be the birds that have no abilities that'll be sitting in the tray. Most likely not. But that was just a demonstration of how this one would work. So you play this and you'd get 3. You'd get all of them, which is nice. And there's only 6 birds in this entire game that have no abilities whatsoever. Just 6. So that's not very many, for sure. Now this ability here, the Brant, this is the only bird with this ability. That's the only one of its kind with that ability. Unless you have an expansion, and I don't know what the birds are in the expansion. So anyways, let's move on. So here we have the American oyster catcher. And once again, this is another bird that has a one-of-a-kind ability. So when played, you'll draw bird cards equal to the number of players plus 1. Starting with you and proceeding clockwise, each player sets one of those cards and places it into their hand. You keep the extra card. So let's say you're playing with 3 people. You're playing with 3 people, so that means you're going to draw 4 cards. You're going to draw 4 bird cards from the deck. So let's just say this is the deck here. You're going to draw the top 4 of them. You're going to get to look at them. And then you're going to pick one, you're going to pass it clockwise to the next player. They're going to get to look at them, they'll pick one, and then you'll get the extra card, because if you're playing with 3 people and you draw 4 cards, there's still 1 card left, you get to keep the last card. So you're basically getting 2 cards and then giving all of your opponents 1 card each, but you have the first say, you get to choose the first card, which is obviously the best. So that's only one of its kind, and the chances of you playing with this bird is slim to none. Okay, then we have the house wren. There's a lot of birds that have very similar powers to this, with just some difference in variation. But when you play this bird, you'll get to play a second bird in either your savanna or your forest, but you also pay its normal cost. All of these have the same thing in common. You'll always pay the second bird paying its normal cost. They're all the same in that regards. But where you place them, wetland, forest, savanna, that could be different. So to understand this is when you play this bird, you must make sure that you have a bird that can be played in the savanna. You also must make sure you have a bird that can be played in the forest, one or the other. Another thing you need to make sure you have before you play this bird is you have enough food to pay for the second bird. Another thing you need to know is you also need to have an egg sitting on a bird, at least one, because when you play a second bird, it's most likely that you'll have to pay at least one egg, if not more, to pay the second bird. Because if you can't play the second bird because you don't meet all of those requirements, then playing this bird is almost pointless. Now, with that said, you'll want to use this ability if you can at all possible, because you're only allowed to play one bird at a time, and so since there's a limited amount of actions in this game, the chances of you filling up your entire player board with birds is slim to none. But if you had a few of these and you took advantage of these birds, it's quite possible you could fill up your player board completely with birds. Now, that might still not be the best idea in the world either, but as of yet, I have never seen a single person fill their entire player board with birds, because it's not really possible. That's just how this game works. But something you definitely might want to try to do, if at all possible, is definitely worth trying. So that's the house wren, and the rest of the birds that are up next are similar. So the great blue heron is the same thing as that, except it's with wetlands only. Same thing with the great egret, wetlands only. The mountain bluebird is savanna only. This one is also savanna. This one is also savanna. This one is for the forest, so the downy woodpecker is for the forest. So is this one, and so is this one. And so is this one. And that's all of the birds with that ability. So, let's see here. Not including the first two birds, there's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 10 birds with that ability. So it's possible you might come across one of those birds in this game, because there's 10 of them with that ability. Alright, so the Say's Phoebe is next, or Phoebe. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but when you play this bird, you'll lay one egg on each of your birds with a bowl nest. So, playing this in the beginning of the game may not be wise, because if this is the only bird you have, you're only going to get to lay one egg, because you're probably only going to have one bowl nest. This is better to play when you know you have a few birds in your player board that have bowl nests, like this ruby-crowned kinlet. So if you had this and this, you'd get to lay 2 eggs, which is really nice. But, like I said, you want to try to get as many as you possibly can. And if you have a bird nest that has a wild nest, you'll see that this nest has a star symbol on it. And so wild nests actually work for every bird ability. So So basically you can say that this is a bowl nest as well, because it's a wild. So if you have wilds, you'd get to lay 1 egg on this as well. So that's another thing to note. But that's how the next few birds that have this ability work, except the nests are probably going to be different. So we have the bowl nest, and this one works with cavity nests, and this one works with ground nests, and this one works with platform nests. And that's it. Those are the only birds with that ability. There's only 4 of them. So that's not likely you'll come across it. But if you do, at least now you know how it works. Okay. Next we have the bold eagle. When played, you'll gain all fish that are in the bird feeder. So to understand this better, let's get the birdhouse out. And you'll notice that in this birdhouse, there are 2 fish dice in here. So you'll take these 2 fish dice out after playing the bald eagle, and you'll then, of course, gain 2 fish from the supply. That's how this card works. Now, if you play this card and there are no fish dice in the bird feeder, then you get nothing. You get nothing. Now, if you're playing this for the Wingspan points, because it gives you 9 Wingspan points, then maybe that would still be worth playing. But you will definitely want to play this for free food. Who wouldn't? So that's how that works. And the next one is similar, except it does it for invertebrates instead of fish. So those are the only 2 birds that have that ability, so the chances of you coming across it are still slim to none. Okay, and it's a one-time ability. These white abilities are a one-time ability, so they will never activate again. So make sure that you can activate them if it's a one-time ability. They can only activate under certain requirements. Now, this is not something that would require a certain requirement. When you play the black-necked stilt, you'll draw 2 bird cards. Pretty easy, pretty straightforward. That's how that works. And the next one has the same ability. Okay, next we have the American Goldfinch. This is a one-time ability, but when you play it, you'll gain 3 seeds from the supply. So that's really cool. So here's a seed, for instance. You'd get 1, you'd get 2, and you would get 3 seeds from the supply. That's pretty easy, straightforward. That's how many you get when you play that. This one is the same thing as that one, except instead of seeds, you'll gain 3 fish from the supply, the brown pelican. All right, and that's it. There's only 2 birds with that ability, so the chances of you coming across a bird with that ability is still slim. Now, the next birds all have the same ability. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So there's approximately 13 birds with this power and exactly the same power. There is no difference in the way this ability works. So the spotted owl here is when it's played, you'll draw 2 new bonus cards and keep 1. So normally, when you play this game, you'll start with 1 bonus card, but you could possibly get more. So when you play the spotted owl, you'll draw the top 2 bonus cards, you'll look at them, you'll decide which one to keep, and you'll discard the other bonus card for every time you play this. So you could come across this. It's possible, because there's 14 of them. It's possible you might come across this more than once in the game. So we got the spotted owl, and we got the roseate spoonbill, for instance, and the Atlantic puffin, for instance. As a for instance, and there's several other birds here that have this ability. So that is still pretty cool. That's all of the cards that have the ability called When Played. So we'll stop here on this video, and we'll continue in the next video with the brown abilities, or when activated abilities, which are tons of birds.